Welcome back to Season 2, Episode 10 of the Women of Rock Oral History Project podcast. I am your host, Tanya Pearson, and this week I interviewed Ana da Silva of the enormously influential punk band The Raincoats. We discussed Ana's upbringing in Madeira, her education and early life as a visual artist, projects since The Raincoats, solo albums, and current projects that she's working on amidst the global pandemic. So without further ado, here is Ana da Silva. Yeah, thank you so much for doing this. I had a hard time sleeping because I was so excited, and then I was afraid I wouldn't wake up in time. So yeah, my dog ate, so he should go and lay down now. It's like
go and lie down.
Yeah, so I sent the interview guide.
Yes.
Which, yeah, it's like very general, and the point is that these are self-directed, and so you all get to tell your stories in your own words, but they all follow the same format from just early life to present day. So usually it's like kind of enjoyable. It's not stressful. That's what I've heard. And so I hope this is like enjoyable.
I'm not stressed.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I guess we can just dive right in if you're ready to just start.
Okay.
Okay.
All
right. So first question, where did you grow up?
I was born and grew up in Funchal, Madeira, a Portuguese island in the Atlantic, your sea as well.
Okay. And what did your parents do? Did you have siblings? What was your life growing up like?
Yes, I had very loving parents, and I had a sister and a brother. My sister, unfortunately, died in 1997. My brother's still alive, and I'm still here.
Yeah. And what did your parents do for a living?
My father was a lawyer, and my mother, an English and German teacher at the secondary school.
Okay. And what was your relationship like with your siblings growing up? Did you guys get along?
My sister was 1.5 years difference from me. We always got on very well, and that's why I sort of miss her lots. And so, you know, we had a very common life together with friends. Of course, I was a bit older and thinking that I knew best, but yeah, we got on very well. We went to the same places. We, lived together. When we went to Lisbon to the university, we also lived together in the room at somebody's house, and and we had common friends, and yeah.
And what kind of kid were you when you were younger? Were you shy? Were you outgoing? Were you always kind of creative?
I was quiet. Maybe a little bit withdrawn, but not a lot. Not just a bit shy. Especially as a teenager, you're just trying to find what the world's about and everything. But I had friends, and went out with people sort of in groups, and yeah, so a bit shy, but not really withdrawn. I said withdrawn, but not really. It's just my sister was very outgoing, and by comparison I wasn't, but that's how I was comparing it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, I always ask that because I think it's really interesting, people who end up being artists or creatives or musicians and performers. I'd say 90% of the time people were like rather shy growing up.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's kind of like a common thread. And then you get up on stage and
I know it's very weird.
uh-huh.
Some people that have known me, they thought of me, oh, this quiet person doesn't make too much of a fuss about anything, and it's quiet. And then they see me on stage, and they can't believe that that's the same person. You know, it's just you just get into that. Music and you're playing and it's loud and you're singing and it's all quite intense. So if you're surrounded by this intensity that you're creating and the other people with you are creating, and you just get into it, you know. Maybe 3 years or 2 years ago, we went to Portugal on a tour, and a cousin of mine went to see me play, and she was so surprised. So, and
because are you still generally like when you're not on stage or when you're not, are you still kind of like a shy person? Would you say that?
Yeah, I'm not. If I'm in a group of people, say went to somebody's house and there's a group of people, I won't be the one that's talking all the time. Definitely not. I'd listen, and I'm not. Gina's more like that. She's very present in that way, and you know. One time she came here, we had a party, and she wanted to move the table from the kitchen into the living room. You know, it's just like that. I was like, oh. But it's yeah. I'm sociable. I'm sociable, but it's just I'm not the loudest and the most talkative person.
Yeah. No,
you might disagree with me at the end of this interview, but who knows?
Maybe.
We'll see.
And when would you say you first started expressing yourself creatively? And was creativity something that was encouraged in your household or by your parents?
Yeah, well, my parents weren't that creative. They just got on with what they had to do. You know, they had 3 children and their jobs and everything. But I knew that from my mother's side, she had learned violin when she was at school, or later. I'm not really sure when she learned the violin, to be honest with you. But she did learn the violin, and she liked music. And my father liked classical music as well. And at one point, I was 15, and we went to Paris, the whole family, and we got taken to the Louvre and other museums, and I saw for the first time the Impressionists, which at that age it's really sort of eye-opening, because those paintings didn't look real in the sense of they're not trying to depict something photographically, and that's very exciting when you're that age, you know. And so we were encouraged to do things like that. And after we went to Paris, when I went back to Madeira, I asked my mother if I could have some paints, and she gave me some paints and some sort of small board type things, canvas board things, and I did a bit of painting, but not a lot. But so that was always in my mind, and I like music. And when I went to university to Lisbon, I used to listen a lot to the radio. There was this really great program that used to play albums. You know, they'd play 2 albums or 2 sides of an album in an hour. So I'd record it on cassette. So I'd have all these albums just because I recorded them. And I befriended this guy as well, where we met in a jazz concert, and he had loads of records. He was completely obsessed with music, and he lent me records. So at that point, that's when I started being more into what was happening. But this is the late 60s, you know. So there were things I was listening to, the Doors, the Beatles I had listened to for a long time, but all that late 60s music, that's what I was kind of getting into. That's what there was, the most interesting part of music. That's the kind of thing that was happening. Yeah.
And so it sounds like you're still a painter. I mean, I consider you just a creative person.
Yeah.
But so painting came first for you, or had you played instruments before college, or?
Yeah. When I was in Lisbon, I was really interested in music like Bob Dylan. I thought he was just amazing, and I liked Joan Baez and all those other things that I was telling you about and more. There's no point in kind of telling all all the bands that existed at the time, and I was really interested in that. And then my sister bought me an acoustic guitar. So when we used to go in groups, maybe spend a weekend at somebody's, because in Lisbon, like London, you get a lot of people that come from somewhere else and they come to study or whatever. And there was a few of us that were like that. And so sometimes we'd go to somebody's house, somewhere else in Portugal or whatever. And I'd take my acoustic guitar, and in the holidays as well. And I used to play, Bob Dylan songs.
And before college, what was your high school or kind of your teenage years like? What kind of student were you, and was education something that was important to your family? Like, were you expected to continue your education?
Yes, I was. I mean, both of them went to university, and both of them. There's quite an interesting story about each one of them, because my father first, when he finished secondary school, he went to work in a bank in Madeira, and then he kept all his money and went then to university. He paid with his own money to go to university, because in those days it wasn't like now that you go and do it for free or you have a debt or whatever. He had to have the money, and so he kept all that money to go to university, and he'd go in at the end of the summer to, this was Coimbra, which was the only university at the time, which is sort of north of Lisbon, and he used to go like maybe September or something and stay there the whole year. There was no money to go home for Christmas and, bank holidays and all that kind of stuff. It was like for the whole year. And in the summer, I don't know if he worked or whatever he did, but that's how it was. And with my mother's side, my grandfather was very much for education, and both my mother and her sister went to university. And my aunt, this was in 1930 something, my aunt went to study law, and she was one of the first women, or the first woman with another one, to study law at the university. Wow. I mean, probably doing what my mother did, which was English and German culture, languages mainly, and literature and stuff. That was probably already happening a bit because you'd become a teacher. So that was normal for women to do a bit, not too much. And and he used to have a friend in some opera house who would let him for free to go and watch concerts, and so there was that kind of thing happening at my mother's house. Yeah.
Interesting. So that obviously, your parents' experiences probably made it that made it more important for you to, like, did you want to go to college, or did you want to do art after?
I did go to university, as I was expected to do. But the thing is, I wanted to study art, but I was told that the art school is terrible and this, and really in Madeira there was no the knowledge of what is possible and what you can do and how you can push yourself. I didn't have that. I think a 17-year-old now knows much more than what I knew when I was 17 or 18. It's just it's difficult to imagine how it was. For a start, in Madeira there were no, well, for a start, Portugal was under a dictatorship, and the church was a very strong institution as well. So the morale was very, very stifling, and so there was that. Then we didn't have TV where you see things, you see the rest of the world, you see other opinions. I'm not saying TV is always great, but you get a lot from there. And we had nothing like that. There was no TV in Madeira until after I was at university. So there was that missing. And the papers were all, because it was a dictatorship, there was only one opinion, really. So, and because Madeira didn't have a university, it was culturally very poor. It's a brilliant place. It's beautiful. I miss it terribly a lot of the times. And it's so beautiful, beautiful mountains and everything. But culturally, it was very poor. And so when I went to university, I just learned so much more because of that. I had been to Paris, as I told you before, with my parents when I was 15. And then when I was a bit, maybe 16 or something, me and my sister came to the UK, to Bournemouth for a couple of months to learn English, because that's what my mother thought, that we should go to places to learn the languages. Whereas some people thought, oh, that's terrible, sending her daughters to England, such a place of sin, and it's that kind of thing. It's very difficult to imagine everything like that. But when I was in Lisbon, so I got in touch with a lot of music and more ideas and everything. So it was very good for me. But I did go to learn the same thing that my mother learned, which was English and German language and studies. And left the art, kind of the idea of the art. And then it was only when I came to England, 6 years later, that I started getting seriously eventually into art and music.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for sharing that, because I didn't realize that there was a 6-year period between Lisbon and then you getting to the UK. So what happened in those 6 years, and then how did you wind up in London?
Well, I was in Lisbon studying. As I said, the course was 5 years, but then there was 1 year in the middle that I didn't do so well. And it's just in Portugal that happens a lot. I sort of got a bit behind, and then it got to I think the 3rd year or something, and I had to just do it again, because just some subjects, not all the subjects, but just because it had been piling up. I was, learning other things in life.
Okay.
What you do when you.
Did you party in college? Did you
not so much partying, but just. No, not much partying, but socializing and going lots to the cinema and seeing seasons of things like oh God, what's his name? My memory is terrible. I just saw this season. Names is just really awful with me. Anyway, it's just seasons of directors, Italian directors, and Swedish directors and so forth, and really got into that kind of thing. And so I was learning culturally. I was enriching myself. So the studies was sort of just going. I was tagging along with them, but then I finished my course, and I didn't really want to go and teach. And then a cousin of mine who lived here in the UK, was living here in the UK at the time, said he was living in a house where these London houses with 3 floors, and that house had been divided into 3 flats. And he was living in one flat, and 2 couples of his friends were living in the other 2 flats. And one of the couples was going back to Portugal, and he asked a friend of mine if she wanted to come. And I said, I'll go. And so I came, and I thought, oh, I'll just, hang around for a while, get a job in a restaurant, which I did, a vegetarian restaurant, which was quite rare at the time. And then I decided they were all creative in the house where I was. And one of them was studying architecture, yes, Shelley's saying in 1974. Oh, close the door. Fascist situation? Yeah.
No, thank you. I was going to ask what year you came to London. So yeah.
She was just saying, did I talk about the fascist situation? Yes, it was a dictatorship. But yes, I did tell you about it. Where was I?
You were working at a vegetarian restaurant. You were living in a flat with creative people.
Yes. Okay, so one of the people, my cousin was studying architecture. A friend of mine was doing fashion, and another one graphic design. And so because I was interested in the arts anyway, and they're all interested in me, I think that kind of gave me the courage, I think, to try it myself and go to an art school. And so I enrolled in an art school, and a few months later I was doing what people here do when they go to study art, is they do a foundation course. I don't know if you have that. So you do it 1 year foundation, and then you choose another college possibly to do the proper course, which is 3 years. So I did that. Oh God!
Oh no!
It's just the names. I can't remember the name of the guitarist in the Clash at the moment.
Not Mick Jones.
Yes, of course, Mick Jones.
All right.
Yes, Mick Jones. It's just my memory for names is really, really terrible.
I'm terrible as well.
Well, it can only get worse.
Yeah, I can't.
Yeah, so Mick Jones was at that school where I was doing foundation. Anyway, so then when I finished that, I applied for another school, and the one I applied for was Hornsey School of Art, and that's where I met Gina.
Okay.
Sorry. And that's also where I first heard about punk.
Okay, yeah. So I was going to ask, so before this moment when you met Gina, had you, because this is, like Shirley said, 1974 London, the second wave of the British invasion, and there was a lot going on. Did you go to see live music while you were in school? Were you sort of involved in the music scene before you started playing in the Raincoats?
No, I was okay. So I was at college. Then there was these 2 really nice guys at the college that knew about punk and everything, and told me about it. And Gina already knew. I didn't know if she knew it was punk, but she had seen the Sex Pistols in the summer when she came to London to apply to look at the colleges to choose a college, the college that she was going to, and she had seen them, but I didn't have a clue about any of it, and so they told me about it, these two guys, and eventually me and Gina started going to gigs together, and then we thought one day, oh, shall we start a band? Oh yeah, let's start a band. You know, those kind of things, nothing serious. Let's start a band. Yeah, that sounds like fun thing to do. And meanwhile, I just can't remember what came first. But there was one day I was at Rough Trade, and this guy asked me if I wanted to play. Did I play guitar? Yes, I play guitar. Would I want to join their band? So we had one rehearsal, and it was all very. There was about 6 or 7 people, and there was already somebody who wanted to be manager, and it all looked to me a bit professional, and but anyway, that didn't go anywhere. But the drummer, I had his contact or something, and when Gina and I decided to have a band, I said, oh, I know a drummer, so I found him, and he started playing with us. And I at that time I had a flatmate, Ross Crichton, who could play the guitar, so he said, and we said, oh yeah, let's all play together. You know, I mean, I couldn't play much, Gina couldn't play, you know, we're all okay. So that's how we started.
Interesting. Yeah, so I you just made me think of something. I mean, the kind of like punk ethos is that it gave people permission who maybe weren't seasoned musicians to just pick up an instrument and play, which it sounds like that's what you and Gina did after sort of seeing the Sex Pistols and noticing this punk scene. Who were your influences? Who were your peers? And did you notice other women at the time playing instruments and starting bands? Like, did you have any point of reference? Did you have any peers at the time? Because to me, you know, I know that there were women, but how connected were you to other women in bands?
Yeah, I wasn't really personally connected with anybody, but I did go to gigs. But there was a few women that I enjoyed watching, but mostly they were singers, and there was gay advert in the adverts who played bass. I didn't think that women couldn't do any of those things, but it was just not in my mind to start the band until we sort of thought, oh yeah, let's start the band, you know, and it's just something that you wouldn't think about, you know, and unless you saw other people saying, oh, you don't need to be really a great guitarist or a great to start something, to have ideas, to have something to say and everything. And meanwhile, there was the Slits. Yeah. So that was a all women band, and that was very refreshing to see. And they were very chaotic and everything, but it was very fresh, very, very, it made you sort of, yeah, I can maybe do something like that, you know. Yeah. So that's the only peers, so to speak. I didn't know them personally, but Palmolive lived in the neighborhood, and her sister lived in Gina's street, and they were friendly, and so there was that connection. And I remember being at a party and Tessa was there. I started a conversation with her, but she would just say yes or no. So I thought, oh, well, just leave it at that. I think she was shy as well. Didn't, you know, feel like, oh, I forgot, you know, I haven't got the meaning of life to share with anybody, you know. It's like, yeah. So so that's how it happened, and the whole thing was really, really organic. There was never a big plan about anything. It was just a sort of almost day-to-day thing. We had this band with Ross and Nick playing drums, and then we had this American woman playing guitar, because Ross only did one gig and I think it terrified him or something. He didn't want to do it anymore. And it's just, I was working in a restaurant, and this woman called Jeremy Frank, she's American, she was there with at the restaurant with somebody from my college. So I started talking to him and everything. Said, oh, I had a band, whatever. He said, oh, I play guitar. I said, okay, come along. Yeah. We were looking for a guitarist, anybody will do, kind of thing. At that time, it was a bit like that. And so she still played with us for a while. We went to Poland with her. And then I think she just hated waiting. We went to do a gig in Reading, not the festival, just a normal gig. And she just got completely freaked out with us having to wait for sound check and waiting for, so that was it. She was a very intense sort of worker person, and she only slept 2 hours a night, and well, that's what she said anyway. And it was all like that. So waiting for her wasn't a good thing. Yeah. So she left, and the whole thing was just like that, pretty much. Then we wanted a drummer. So Richard Dudansky played with us for a while, and then Palmolive was chucked out of the Slits, and he thought it was a good idea if she joined us, and so she did, and she put an ad in a bookshop, to ask for another player, but she asked for violin or keyboard player, but I think she wanted something classical in the band. I didn't realize at the time. She's just recently told us that something more kind of classical, and she would have those thumping drums that she does. So there would be this contrast of things. But we went more for the John Cale, Velvet Underground kind of. They're classical anyway, aren't they? Different kind of classical rock music or whatever.
I do want to.
It makes me thirsty. Sorry.
Oh, I know, me too. And well, I have my coffee.
I can only have one coffee a day.
I'm starting to do that, but it's hard. I'll make one pot, and I'm like, this is one coffee. It's one pot of coffee.
Yeah.
I drink throughout the
morning. Yeah. It can. I was okay with it, and then I had a sort of a fibrillation thing with my heart, and so I'm not really supposed to have much of it. I said to my cardiologist, I said, "Oh, it devastates me not having coffee. It really, that's the worst thing." He said, "Well, you can have one." So I have one.
That's nice.
Not a pot though. I have to keep it, don't want to end up in the hospital.
No, but since I've been like stuck in my apartment for the pandemic, I mean, I work from here, I can really, I can go well over the 1 cup. Yeah, because I would just have 1 cup.
Because you're young, basically.
Well, I'm 40 now, so I have to.
That's still young. You're a spring chicken. Yeah, but you have to sort of slow down a little bit.
Yeah.
Less sugar, less salt, less fat.
I'm like vegan, sober, I'm like, can I just have my one thing? I just want my my pot of coffee.
I know. I don't know what it is with coffee, but it's just like, that's the one thing I look forward in the day.
Yeah.
That coffee. Now I've got a grinder, so it's all, I measure the weight and I have to, because of the, so I keep to the same weight of coffee and I weigh the water and I have my cup of coffee, and I don't do anything at that time. This is coffee time,
It's special.
Well, let's have a few pleasures in life.
Yes. So I do want to ask about, because people, obviously, the Raincoats are this iconic band. But what was it like at the time, starting out, playing shows and recording that first record for Rough Trade? Like, how did audiences receive you? Were you well liked? Did people think, what the hell is this? Because it was very different, even as part of, the London punk scene. Yeah, just kind of like the trajectory.
Yeah. Well, we started, it was funny because we had just maybe 5 songs or something. And we that's when this guy, Nick, the first drummer, was still playing with us, and Ross. And we met Richard Dodansky in the street, and he said, "Oh, I'm doing a gig in November. Do you want to play?" And we said, yeah, sure. We didn't know what we needed to take, and we didn't know anything about PAs. We had 2 practice amps, which are very small. And so the 2 guitars would go through 1 amp, and the bass and the voice, or whichever order. 2 guitars would go, and the bass and the vocals in these 2 amps. That's how we did it. And so it was like, we didn't really know what we needed to do, but then we got there and did it. And I thought, oh my God, what am I doing? How did I even think that I could do this? It's just when you get yourself in this sort of terrible, in a situation, and you think, why am I doing this? And I really felt terrible about it. I felt like being swallowed by the earth, and Gina was really scared as well, and Ross hid behind an amp, and but we did it. And people who were basically people from around here, and friends of friends, they responded very well. So that was I was hooked, I must say.
Yeah.
After doing it, I was hooked. I was scared, but when it happened and it went well, I mean, it was the first gig. The music must have been terrible, but it was already the songs that we put on the album. So there was something in them that was okay, and and we did it.
And how did you get signed to was Rough Trade back then what it is today? Or was it was a small, just independent label?
Yeah, at that moment, Rough Trade was just a shop, and it did some, when you sell things, mail order. Oh, so okay. Firstly it was a shop, and then they got this woman, Sudan, who did mail order. There was only 4 people, and when I went to work there, no, actually, yes. Yeah, I think I was the 4th person. Like, there was 3 people just there. There was Jeff, there was a guy called Steve, and Sudan doing the mail order. And I went to work in the shop because Jeff thought it would be good to have a woman in the shop. Okay. Not in that sense that, you want a pretty girl to be in the shop or something, but to have a woman there so that the guys that came in would learn how to speak to a woman properly, that kind of thing, having that sort of female presence and he always had lots of females in the shop and the label. So the label came a bit later. First I was I started working there very early, the time of the band. I started working there, and then when we had the band together, at some point we asked him to come and see us, and then Stiff Little Fingers were doing an album somewhere in Cambridge, and they didn't use up the whole time because they did it so quickly. And Jeff asked, "Would you like to use that time and do single, I think, at the time it was. Eh?
Demo, that was like 78. When you worked in the shop, it was like 77.
Yes, Shelley's very good with dates. I'm terrible with dates and remembering what came after. But I was working at the shop in 1977, and in 78, Stiff Little Fingers were doing their album, and there was that time, and Jeff asked us if we wanted to do a demo, and that's what we did first, and then we went back and did the EP, the Fairy Tale and In Love and Adventures Close to Home EP. Sorry?
That was in spring 79. At that point, you got Palmolive and Vicky.
Yeah. In spring 79, we went to do the EP with Vicky and with Palmolive.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what were just the music industry is so different now. How were you able to tour, to play shows? Did Rough Trade, did you get paid? Like, what was the role of the label as as you were starting to play more and to tour, and to make a name for yourself?
Yeah, we went on tour about the time that we released the EP. It was in a way to promote that, I think. And so we went and did a UK tour for pretty much nearly a month. And we went all over the UK. And sorry, what was the question? The label. Yes, yeah, the label prepared everything. Shirley, meanwhile, was working at Rough Trade, and she had something to do with booking this tour as well. And that's when she started working with us through Rough Trade first, and then personally with us. And well, so we did the tour, and some of the costs ended up coming out of the album, but not much, we were all traveling, 3 bands in a van that had 13 places. There was 4 of each band and the driver and maybe 1 more place, and that's how we traveled. By the end, a few people were so fed up with it that the bands were nearly disbanding, and but it was a great thing, because we played all those shows, got some experience, and then when we came back at the end of it, when we came back to London, we almost immediately went and did the album. So we played the album pretty much live. All the instrumentation was live. There's only maybe in No Sight to Fall In a couple of changes there, just very, very minimal stuff. And the voices we added after playing the instruments. That's the procedure usually. So we recorded it in 2 weeks and then mixed it in 1 week. So it's kind of almost like a live album in a way, because
my preferred way to record, actually. I was just thinking, like, 43 years later, and I still like to record that way. Put the vocals on, maybe a couple overdubs, but
yeah. So you play music as well?
Yeah. I always have, just for fun. It's just.
What's your band?
I played drums in a band called Feminine Aggression right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Good. Yep. We need some of that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So we just started playing, just like rehearsing and stuff, because the pandemic happened and we were going to record another album again live in my rehearsal space. But then we hadn't. Pandemic, 1.5 years later. So starting over again. But it's fun. Yeah.
In a way, you think when somebody is listening to an album, they're not listening to it if the dB in that instrument is 0.1 too loud, or that thing is 1.1 too bassy. It's the tune and the rhythm and the sort of drive of the whole thing, and the words, if you understand them, that kind of thing. I never understand words.
I don't understand what our singer is saying ever. I just make up my own words and he laughs at me.
Yeah, but it's that, and that can be done without having, our album could have taken a year if we were, some people go somewhere and stay a year in the studio, basically drinking and having drugs and maybe doing a bit of recording every week for half an hour. But we had to do it, and that's how I like doing it too.
Do you still do it that way?
Well, my last two albums, which were solo, so it's the one I did with Few and the one, The Lighthouse. The Lighthouse, I did it here in my living room with a little instrument. It's a Yamaha QI70. It's a digital small instrument the size of a VHS cassette, if anybody knows what that is anymore. And then I recorded it to a 4-track Roland digital machine, and I got a nice microphone and did the vocals separately, but all the music comes from the digital thing. So it is very, for me, that was like digital punk or something I was doing. Sort of very simple, very quite cheap, actually. That thing cost about £300 at the time, but to do a whole album with that instead of going to a studio, it's like peanuts, isn't it? And then with Few, I got a more expensive instrument, which is a modular synth, just because I kind of got crazily hooked by the whole idea, and you just it's here's the word. Yeah, sort of got hooked by it, and did the album with Few, also here in my living room on my left. The other one was on my right, and it is use the computer, but. I could now do a whole album just in the computer very easily.
I know. So different. Yeah.
Yeah. You get so many good sounds and you have so much control over it and everything. It's maybe too much control, because you start getting really picky about certain things. Yeah.
I know, that's what I miss about. I'd always recorded on this a Fostex digital recorder I got it in 1997 and I still have it. But during the pandemic, because I was doing just kind of fun musical collaborations with people across the country, I had to, upgrade to Garage.
Upgrade a bit.
To
what, sorry?
Yeah, I had to enter this century. But I sort of I miss using that, because I like the mistakes and it doesn't sound so, I don't know, I can plug my guitar into the computer and it sounds very different than if I plug it into my external recorder. So I'm getting used to it, but I do like that just kind of live sound. I don't mind mistakes and little,
They're not mistakes really, are they? They're just I suppose you can call a mistake if you intend to do something and you do something else, but it's just your body and your mind kind of taking you there in a way. It's I think looking for perfection is a really silly idea. Myself, I
have to yell at my dog again real quick. Hold on. Andrew, hey, stop. I'm talking to Anna de Silva of the Raincoats, and you can't be licking yourself, Sam.
Hello, doggy. Hello, doggy.
Sometimes
ignoring me. Hello.
I know. He doesn't know how cool this is, but he's in a lot of interviews now that I just do them at home. Well, in the kind of same vein as avoiding perfectionism, the Raincoats have always been kind of described as like uncommercial, anti-establishment, DIY. Was that intentional, to kind of have that anti-commercial, anti-traditional rock sound? Did you ever intend to sort of transition to be a more mainstream band, or to make a living doing music?
Well, funny enough, we did make a living doing our music. When we did the first album and the second album, we didn't need much. We used to buy clothes secondhand. We ate basic food because we didn't know how to cook much better than that, and we didn't have. I think the thing that at least I was more enthusiastic about was the band more than having a new pair of trousers, unless it was a secondhand shop and they looked really interesting. It was more like if something was interesting. I never wanted to be mainstream. I still feel great that I didn't, and I can walk around and nobody knows me, and I'm very happy with that. And it was sort of, we weren't kind of really trying to be anti-establishment, but we weren't going with the establishment. We wanted to do things in our own terms, and maybe we said, but we thought, well, we're kind of looking for our own voice, if that's possible. There was us, this 4 women. Our band would never have been what it was if it wasn't because there was these 4 people, whereas some bands you might have one person that more or less dictates how the whole thing was, but ours was very much all of us putting our own characters and history and background all coming into the pot, say. And for instance, when I read Jen's book, I was really quite surprised I was quite surprised because I found out things about the others that I didn't know, because we didn't used to speak so much about ourselves. Do you speak about yourselves much, you in your band? Yourself, do you?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah. Well, we did a bit, today this happened or that, but we didn't talk so much about our past and our families and things, because we're all away. Palmolive is Spanish. I'm Portuguese. Gina is from Nottingham, and Vicky, her family also was, I'm not sure where, but it's all. We were all just here, having this band and trying to find some way of expressing all of that stuff out without even thinking about it. Yeah. You just write the song, or to try and make sense of things as well, but we didn't want to follow the establishment. We didn't want to follow the other punk bands. We didn't really want to follow anybody in particular, but obviously we were fruit of that time. I don't deny that. We were not original. We came from something, but so that's to start with. That was the idea, and so to discuss things and how to proceed about certain things. We had Shirley as well, as I said before. She started working with us in 79, and so everything that we were discussing as far as where to play, and things like that. Basically, she managed us, as in the traditional way, but not only that, she's more like a curator in a way, and she was working at Rough Trade, so sort of in between thing as well, between Rough Trade and us. But a lot of the certain ideas, general ideas about the band, she was part of that too. Yeah, but musically, when we were, yeah.
I know that's so. I mean, it's sort of unheard of to have a manager for as long, because Shirley still manages you, right? And I think or Gina as well, like in anything having to do with the Raincoats, seems like a very special, I don't know, it just seems kind of great to have a relationship with someone for that long who like genuinely cares about the music and the art, and she's just very nice. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's everything that we have, because for instance, I know that some other bands that have stopped playing or even that are still playing, they either have someone new or have no one, and are kind of a bit in a limbo with everything, whereas Shelley takes care of everything that is to do with the Raincoats, and my own thing as well. When I did the record, we've got a label and that she runs. We call it We Three, but Shelley runs it, and so it's all kind of still, going in that way. It's sort of. It's just very important, because I can see how a band, if you haven't got somebody like that to keep things together, it can just fizzle out. You receive an email to do something, and what you do, it's really hard. And all the money as well, how the things, and somebody makes a film and this and that, and it just really is complicated. Yeah.
I'm curious, when did you and Shirley start your label? What year? And then why did you start a label rather than working with other labels?
Why give your money to other people? Okay, they do provide a service. But Shirley was nearly finishing her time as a teacher, so retiring, and we were thinking, oh, we should re-release the albums on vinyl as well, because everybody suddenly wants vinyl and not CDs anymore, and we still do the CDs though, and we just thought, well, she has so much knowledge to do with the business. Like, I really hate using the word music business, but she does know from inside, from managing us, from having worked at Rough Trade, and from learning all the time about things. If there's something that she doesn't know, she finds out, and then she knows. And then she just thought, well, if we start a label, then it means it's all ours. We have a really good distributor. So the distributor actually pays for the manufacturing of things, and gets a cut from the whole thing, and it's a very good deal. And we do everything exactly like we want. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, I have a couple that I'm going to go back to, but I do want to just ask you, retrospectively, the Raincoats are this huge, kind of iconic and revered band. But it's so funny, like looking at the discography, is that in the grand scheme of things, didn't last that long. So it's like in the grand scheme of your entire life, the Raincoats are like a little blip,
Yeah.
Yeah, you reform and stuff, but what happened? So you recorded, 4 full-length albums, disbanded in the 80s. I mean, you did reform, but just what was the demise of the Raincoats? Why did you decide to end it?
Right. When we did 3 albums first, and we went to New York and did a live album there, which is the Kitchen Tapes. That was one of the last, if not the last gig that we did at that time. Because for a start, there was, we had at that point 2 drummers and we had a sax player. There was 6 of us, 3 men and 3 women. And I just felt the whole thing slipping through my fingers. That's my experience of it. Everybody wanted different things out of the band. And I wanted to stay with the ideas that we had when we did the first album and the second album. That kind of I didn't want to be successful, you know. I wanted to be always have wanted to be successful within what we do, but just the success of what we do, meaning that we have some people that we respect their views, that like what we do, not because we'd sell million records or something. It's just a respect for what we did. I think that's what I'm trying to say, that I was kind of looking for more than numbers, really. And I didn't want to start doing pop or I don't know. It just felt to me that it was going in a direction that I didn't want to go. And the others maybe felt the same. They had their own reasons. So we thought the best thing would be to disband. And then Shirley once again sort of had this good idea, which was we go to the studio, we record because we had all those songs, we record those songs, and the author of each song would have the last say in how that song would be presented. And we did that, and everything went fine. There were no major issues, no arguments, no big deal, you know, because we just accepted that, and that's how we did Moving.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, did you consider you said when you did the Kitchen Tapes, 2 drummers, saxophone, you had brought like strings had been brought into the band before. Did you consider that becoming more pop, like more members and more instruments meant more mainstream? Or
well, I think maybe it would, but also too many ideas and too many it's too many people, everybody's saying what they want to do. You know, it's okay when you have a leader and you have 6 people and they do what that person wants to do, and that's easy. But when everybody's being democratic, it's too much. Democracy works to a certain extent, but it has its difficulties, and that's one of them. Too many, because each person is different, and each person has different ideas and different tastes and everything, and it just wasn't going very well.
Yeah,
for me anyway.
And yeah, I mean, what did you do when the Raincoats broke up? What did you plan to do?
When the Raincoats broke up, that was it for me at that point. That's what I thought. But meanwhile, I got a 4-track tape recorder at some point. I can't remember when, and I just fiddled a bit about with music. But obviously, I had to make a living, so I got a job. And basically, during those 10 years between Moving and the next album, there were no Raincoats to speak of, and I started another band at some point, which I liked, which was called Roseland, but we never ended up recording. I was playing with the
names.
I'm going to forget my name in a minute. Oh, Jesus. From This Heat, the drummer from This Heat. I was playing with him and he played with the Raincoats as well. Charles Hayward. Yes, I had this band called Roseland, and the drummer was Charles Hayward, and there was a woman playing bass clarinet, which was beautiful. It was such a beautiful instrument. It sounded great. One time I told my the Anne Wood, who plays violin with us, she's friends with the woman that played that the bass clarinet, and I said, "Oh, the bass clarinet is such a beautiful instrument." And she said, "Well, that's the way Sarah plays it, because she makes it sound so beautiful." And we had this woman, Helen Ottaway, that played keyboards, and it was a really nice thing. And some of the songs we ended up not carrying on. I can't remember why. I think it just fizzled out. And eventually I ended up using some of the songs when I did The Lighthouse. I sort of didn't hear the tape, so I wouldn't be influenced by what they played, because, you know, that's a different thing. So I just knew what I had written the song, so I based the way I recorded it on how I had written it. So I did that and re-recorded them for The Lighthouse.
And I just want to go back a little bit, because it's funny. This is like, Women of Rock Oral History Project, but Kurt Cobain comes up a lot in interviews, just as far as, he was a great appreciator of music, of good underground music. And it was nice to see you in the, I watched that recent documentary about, I think it's just called When Nirvana Came to the UK. You were reading the Incesticide liner notes. But so if you could just sort of, I know he came and found you at, you were working, but then he got Sony to, I believe, maybe this, I don't know if this is true or not, but got Sony to release the Raincoats back catalog?
No.
Okay.
No, what happened was he was a big fan of the Raincoats, and as you know, by the way, the lighting they used on me wasn't very flattering on that film.
I noticed, just because when I do in-person interviews, we like blow people out, there's no shadows or anything. So I do notice that, where I'm like, but I thought, you look great, so I wouldn't worry about it.
I know, I was a bit anyway. So Kurt Cobain was a fan. He came to see me. There was a bit of to and froing with he wanted a record. I sent him a record with some drawings inside, and I got everybody to sign the record. We sent it to him, and then he did those liner notes that he put on Incesticide and everything. But what happened is that at that point, Shirley had gone to Rough Trade to talk to Jeff about re-releasing all our albums on CD, because we didn't have CDs yet at that point. Our records were out of print, had been for a long time, and everybody was buying CDs, and we didn't have vinyl or CDs. So she went there to talk to Jeff about re-releasing everything on CD, which Jeff wanted to do. So what happened is that Geffen, not Sony, but Geffen, and maybe Geffen belonged to Sony now. I don't know. Sony belonged to have the world, own the whole world. So yeah, so Geffen got interested in us because of that. So so what we did was Jeff re-released our CDs and licensed them to the United States to Geffen. That's what happened. And then meanwhile, I think in Geffen, somebody told Ray Farrell, who was the person between us and Geffen, he says, "Oh, tell them to make a record." He said, "Oh, steady on." Things aren't just like that. Just tell somebody to make a record. But we had songs. I had some songs. Gina had some songs. And we thought, oh yeah, okay, let's. We had forgotten why we had split up probably, and decided to do it. So that's when we decided to do Looking in the Shadows, and we did it. I actually like that album. It's not very popular, but I actually like it. It's a bit overproduced, I think, but I quite like it.
Yeah, I really like this. I love the songs. But I think I'm with you on the production. I miss school, non-production.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it was. Yeah.
And it's still great.
Yeah.
So after Raincoats rebanded, recorded in 96, just, I guess, to kind of put all of these sort of last questions together, just what have you been doing? I know that you started focusing more on painting, but that the Raincoat, you've recorded solo albums, that the Raincoats still play and perform every now and then. What is life like? What have you been doing?
Yeah. I have been doing. We've done Raincoats. The thing is, it seems like some days at the end of the day you think that you've done nothing. But there was this interview, and there was that thing, and there was that thing. Lately, I've done some collaborations and some. I did 2 projects. Because with the pandemic as well, you were saying before that you were doing collaborations across the country, and that's what I have done as well. Well, I did one piece on my own for a festival, a sort of festival, festival without people in Portugal, in the north of Portugal. I did a sort of half an hour piece there for them. I did a collaboration for the Issue Project in Brooklyn, and I did that with a few. We collaborated musically, and Shirley did some visuals. She had some really beautiful photographs, and we used that. So it's a sort of visual and music piece. That I don't know if that's still up. It probably is. And I'm just doing another collaboration at the moment for somebody in Portugal. It's sort of techno-ish, but quite a really nice track. And I'm doing something on it. I don't know if it's techno, but it's really nice though. And the people ask for interviews from Mexico and this and there and the other. And it's just, you end up doing quite a lot without actually producing a lot. But I did that record with a few. Then we did another thing that is on Bandcamp, a song called Ah, that we just put on Bandcamp. And yes, and I'm going to get back to the music, but now in the summer, I thought it'd be nicer to do the painting because there's more light. It's nicer to do. The days here are so. Where do you live?
I live in the East Coast, United States. Coast. Yeah, Massachusetts. Yeah.
Are your days short in the winter?
Yeah, it's very depressing.
Yeah. And so I thought, well, in the summer, also with paints and everything, it's nice to have some air, and the light was great, and it would be very hot to have the headphones on and stuff. So I thought I'll do painting in the summer, and then in the winter I'll get back to the music. Yeah, so I just do things,
How do you how do you sort of identify when you think of yourself as a creative person? Do you think of yourself more as an artist, a musician, a painter?
Yeah.
Like, what kind of comes first? Or
I think music is art anyway. So I kind of see myself being in the arts, and whatever, because music, it's all about, well, it's writing as well. It's structure. It's got elements that painting also has, and so I see it as a, yeah, I'm sort of, I suppose I'm an artist.
yeah, no, I like that.
I'll get a T-shirt saying I'm an artist.
And just, you were talking about that you've been collaborating, and obviously the Raincoats was a democratic collaborative band, but you've also done solo albums, and painting is a very solitary kind of practice. Do you have a preference? Do you prefer to collaborate, or do you prefer to work alone? Or do you like both for different reasons?
I like both for different reasons, because when you're working with somebody else, there's a toing and froing. And the album I did with Few, I really, really enjoyed that. It wasn't difficult between us. And it was this thing, I'd send her something and then she'd send it back, and it would come back different and enriched, And so basically, more or less half of the songs I start and do more or less half of it, and then I'd send it to her and she'd finish it, and vice versa. It wasn't like one track and then another track, and then it would be pretty quick, like doing a whole song, because we just do sort of half of it each, and she'd send me something, which was nice as well, because it would be a surprise when she started something, and then I'd send back nearly finished product, and then her partner would mix. He's great at mixing.
I was always like looking for kind of representations of myself. I was very drawn to women who played music, and I was like a closeted kind of unhappy kid, and now I call myself an aging lesbian spinster. All right, what?
That's a good name for a band as well.
I know I should, because it's a pretty constant. It's not changing. I'm 40 now, so I'm like, I think this is just, it's great. I love working, and I guess this is just it. What is your sexuality or sexual sort of like identification? Are you straight, gay?
Oh, I consider myself queer, if that's
queer. Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't fully adopted that term yet.
Sorry, who hasn't?
I haven't.
All right.
Yeah, because it's like,
and why is that? I kind of don't think about terms, very often, because I find every term, certain terms, really limiting and stuff. But I think that one is probably quite open as well, and not as limiting. I don't know. But why haven't you embraced that one?
Oh no, I mean, I'll say, like, I teach college. I teach history, and so college kids, and they use that term. But for me, it's just, it doesn't have the same kind of like political implications that it had back in the 90s. It was more of a political term, and now I feel like it's just anyone who isn't.
They're all queer now.
Yeah, like, so, and I say as a joke, like, I just want to know who will date me, or like
who
will like sleep with me or have sex with me. And so that doesn't, all queer people, that doesn't necessarily mean that they will like date me or want to go on it or go out with me.
Yeah.
So I just stick with lesbian. But why, I mean, now I'm going off on a tangent, but why I find this really interesting is that it's very generational. So now musicians, just their sexual identity or their gender identity is it's a really big part of their sort of music or art. And, you know, when I talk to people who were maybe queer or just LGBTQ in the 60s and 70s, it didn't really matter. Like it was private. It didn't have much to do with the band you were in or with the music that you played. And so, you know, I wanted to ask you, because you were someone in the Raincoats as a band that I saw as being like a reflection of myself, although you weren't out and talking about being queer. It was important to me to see you.
That's interesting, and I'm sure that a lot of people, well, I know that a lot of people felt the same way as you about me, and I think that's important, and it's very rewarding to me. It's just that at the time it was difficult to even say that you were feminist, because it was just like such a people, each person, you know, in words, words are so difficult sometimes, because every person has sees a different meaning in each word. And when you say, you know, I've got brown hair, it might mean to somebody, it might be chestnutty, or it might be, you know, a bit more sort of whatever, another shade of brown. And when with words like that, it's I just remember people being and a lot of women refusing to say that they were feminists, because they didn't want to be put in that category of boring, you know, unshaven women. Oh God, what a terrible thing, you know. But so what you're saying, it's for me, it's rewarding and everything. But I always felt that being in a band, that we should, that I didn't want to impose my own personal stand or whatever into the group, because once you enter one of those things, it's just that nothing else matters. If you're this, oh, are you a feminist band? You know, fuck off. That's not just who we are. We are that, but that's not all we are, you know. And people grab onto these things, and usually to attack you. And I found that very difficult. And I didn't want to impose my own thing into the band. I didn't want the band to be, oh, this is a queer band or whatever, a gay band or something. Because that wasn't the case, and that's not why we were playing music. We were playing music because we wanted to. We didn't want to prove anything. Obviously, with what you do, you sort of try to well, we tried to put our own views about issues, and the views that we all had were similar. So whatever views we put out there, we didn't want to ram them against people, but they were there. If you look for them, they're all there, but just I hope in a creative sort of way.
Yeah.
Am I making sense to you?
Yes. Yeah, a lot. Yep.
So I don't see much point in kind of changing that now, you know. I'm not hiding anything, but I'm not, that's not what I'm trying to do. What I'm trying to do is to say that we should accept people of all creeds and colors and ages, well, especially now ageism, you know.
That's my next question.
So I should, I was thinking, what should I be, I can't be writing songs about, this is just a stupid thought, but, the things about, teenage love or something. No, it would be about, getting old and having arthritis I don't really have much arthritis, but, should I write songs like that? Would anybody want to listen to that? I don't know, but the fact that a lot of the times it's the fact that we're doing something that I think is where the meaning is. And for instance, I just thought I'd tell you this. When we went to New York a few years ago, I have to look to see the date. We went to play at the Kitchen.
Yep.
In 2017, the Raincoats played at the Kitchen to launch Jen Pelly's book about the Raincoats, about our first album and about the band in a way. And Bikini Kill did this surprise to us. I asked them to send a video or something to collaborate somehow because Shirley put this, as the great curator she is for the Raincoats, she put this thing together with several things like film and voice and people going and doing something on stage. So we asked all the Bikini Kill members to collaborate in some way, and I wrote to Kathleen and she never answered back, and then I said, well, can you tell me if it's okay if you can't do it, we'll still be friends. She thought I was being sarcastic, but we'll still be friends and everything. And then she said, oh well, I'm too busy, blah blah blah, I'm sorry, but I can't do it. And then she turns up, so they were behind the scenes, they were they hadn't played for years and years, and they just decided to do this thing whereby they go and play a couple of songs or one song in this launch of Jen's book. And they did that, and then they said that the fact that we play being older women. I'm 73 now, for Christ's sake, but and they played, and it felt good that they played, and they felt, well, we're younger than the Raincoats, and they felt inspired by us. And that's why I think that's what they say. I think that's why they're playing again. They played in London, 2 really big gigs, and they were full, and people were just going crazy about it. I saw them in a small pub. I don't know, probably 100 people or something. I can't remember. But in a pub wouldn't be a lot of people, and now they're just sort of playing big audiences like that. And I feel, for me, that's another really rewarding thing.
And for me, entering my 40s, it's a lot more meaningful to see older women performing in public. Like every show that I've been to, not that I've been to many this year, but I'd say the past 5 years have been, bands that have reunited, or people that I've interviewed who are like in their 50s now, or like you in your 70s. I think it's more powerful, it's more meaningful, and it's more inspiring, because according to the mainstream, like, you're not supposed to be doing this. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so to see Bikini Kill, this tiny band, now playing these enormous venues, I think it's better than it was like when it was happening in the 90s, because now you have the added.
We still have. I find it really amazing that when we play, we have people of all ages, and we have so many young people and so many women. In most gigs that you go to, there's hardly any women. A lot of unless it's Bikini Kill or something, or Beth Ditto or Gossip or something like that, then you get a different audience. But when we play, we get, from 17 or 18 to people, maybe not many but from our time. It's and about 2 years ago, I think it was, I don't know, 3 or something like that, maybe more. I went to a gig, and it was the Downtown Boys, Big Joni, and Priests. Those 3 bands. And at the end, I was talking to one of them, and I was saying, "This is amazing," because when we were playing, there was Palmolive playing drums, and who else? I don't know. There was hardly anybody. And I said, and now we're here in one space, and there's on stage 3 drummers, because each band had a female drummer. And also these women came to talk to me. Oh, we formed the band, and da-di-da-da, and she plays drums. I thought, I can't believe this. It's just so, and so creative. The whole thing is so creative. And I think, Downtown Boys felt inspired by us and lots of other bands, and for me that's much more important than selling 1 million records. It's kind of being inspirational, and so I hope I don't find that. I hope I don't sound big-headed, but it's really. It's just the most rewarding thing that you give something like that, and that somebody feels connected with us in some way, like you said you did, and people, that's just the most important thing. And recently, somebody put on Instagram that her son, who is 8, I think it was 8 or 7, something like that, had asked, "Mommy, can we listen to the Raincoats when we get back?" And I thought, wow, it's probably Lola or something. But I thought, oh wow, you sort of, somebody is having, at that age, is seeing something already in there. Maybe not The Void, maybe,
I was just listening. I was listening to The Void to get pumped up for the interview.
Oh, it really pumps you up.
And my niece and nephew are they're coming over after this. We're going to go apple picking, but they're
oh wow, that's great.
Yeah, it's, fun autumn activity.
Yeah.
They're 10 and 7. And so I've been gently pushing music on them for like I bought my nephew a drum set. I bought my niece a guitar and an amp. We're always like doing music together, but my niece asked me about this. She's 10. So she asked me about this project all the time now. Like, who is this? What band is this? Because she doesn't know anything. So when you just said that, on the way to apple picking, we're going to listen to a little bit of the Raincoats, and I'll let her pick a song. But she's very curious about, she only knows Taylor Swift and like pop radio, which is normal at that age.
Yeah.
But she's curious. So
it's kind of people understand when they're young. They don't. It's easier to understand something like that than something that is a bit more complex. You have to go slowly, don't you?
Oh, very slowly. Yeah. Some stuff I let her listen to, and she's just like, what is it? No.
Yeah.
I'm like, you'll get there. 13, 13, 14, you'll get there.
Yeah.
But I have the last few questions that I end every interview with, and I ask everyone. You will not sound big-headed, but how do you feel about your role in and contribution to rock and roll history as a whole?
I feel that the Raincoats gave something that is fresh, imaginative, kind of free, hopefully honest. I think it sounds honest. And I think that we inspired a lot of women, which for us is so important, because women are still going behind a bit in many aspects of life. And so having had that, being able to contribute for that push to women to be more involved in more things, has been a very positive thing for us.
That was good. That's a good quote. Yeah, I like it.
Can I be a bit more big? No, I don't know anymore. I'm run out.
And in terms of this project, actually, and just gendered categories in music, are gendered categories over? Are they still necessary? Why or why not?
Yeah, I'm not sure what you mean by that, actually.
Oh, okay. So Women of Rock Oral History Project, right? There are some people who say it's still very necessary to document specifically, women's stories. There's some people that say that is reductive and harmful because we're still sort of singling women out from the whole. I think I refer to like male fronted bands. I make it a point to refer to them as male fronted bands. And yeah, I don't know. Like, I have my opinions, but I'm curious what.
I think it's very necessary to still go out of your way to give women a voice, because the voice is still quiet, and it needs more of us and louder. It's I one thing that I have thought at times is that maybe my generation, the time that I've lived, is one of the ones that has gone faster in terms of everything. Millions of years ago. God, that was difficult. Millions of years ago. So it would take 1,000,000 years for somebody to invent a little tool or something, or learn how to hunt or something. And then in the 19th century, there was the Industrial Revolution. So a lot of things changed and everything in the 20th century as well. But the second half of the 20th century and this century, things have got just exponentially just gone faster and faster and faster in changes of a lot of things. Most things, technology, everything, and the way of living as well. It's very different. And I think, women had their place in the home. I'm getting a bit, my tongue is tangled up. Was mainly to look after home and everything. And that still has to exist to a certain point. But it's the women having the freedom to go in other ways that is necessary to be accepted as something that can happen. Why does a girl have to when becomes a girl becomes a woman? Why does she has to end up having children? You don't have to have children, but it's people. It's just used to be you're not a whole person if you don't have children, and that's for women and for men. It's like you're incomplete. But I see for my nieces, who are in their 20s now, and my 18-year-old friend, they're all saying, I don't want to have children. One of them said, I might want to adopt, but I don't want to have a child from my body. And they feel that they can say those things and be those things. And it's really important that you have the choices. And that's the thing. If you want to, have 10 children, well, maybe you shouldn't, because the world has got too many people. But, I think it's choices that people should have, and that people should be protected from those choices. Because if you choose not to have children when you get to be 90 or 100 and you've got dementia, it's a bit of a shame if you haven't got somebody who can kind of decide things for you.
Yeah.
And if you haven't got children to do that, I keep thinking, oh, well, I've got a child who's going to look after me when I lose my mind, which is a frightening thought.
I think about that too. It's a little early, but
Yeah.
I'll figure it out. Plenty of time.
Yeah, maybe a nephew and niece. Who knows?
Yeah, I could rope them into taking care of
your own children are not a guarantee to do that anyway.
Mm-mm.
So why bring them up all your life?
Yeah. Sorry, looking at my dog again. Okay. This is the Oprah Winfrey question. What are you most proud of personally and or professionally?
Well, I think I led my life in an okay way. I didn't commit any crimes. I didn't judge people too badly. I did my best to do my work in the most honest way I could do, and but I don't think too much about myself as being proud of something or being proud. Maybe it's my Catholic upbringing that being proud is a sin, so I don't think too much. Although I'm not religious, but these things stay in your mind. Mustn't be proud. But I'm kind of happy with how I dealt with things. I think mostly. I do have regrets, but which most people like to say they haven't got regrets because it's like they've learned a lesson from them. But there are things I wish I had done differently, some things. But I think everybody would if they really admitted to it.
Mm.
Well, what can you do? You just deal with it. And
wait, what do you wish you'd done?
And mostly wasn't things that I did badly to anybody else. Is that maybe I was stupid once or twice.
Okay. Yeah.
Nothing, there's nothing specifically, but it's like people always like to say I haven't got any regrets, and I think that you have to admit that if you have any.
Yeah.
I think.
I mean, yeah.
You have regrets.
Do I?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I was a drug addict and an alcoholic for a long time, so I.
Well, that's a good regret to have.
Yeah,
but you're out of it, and that's good. That's it. You decide. Then eventually you come out of it and resolve the thing. The thing that made you regret. You resolve it in the best way.
Yeah.
For yourself and for others.
Yeah, I think that having regrets and learning something along the way, they're not like mutually exclusive. So,
yeah,
I've got them, but also like I'm grateful that everything that happened because I feel like a really decent human being now. So I don't know if it would have happened like had I not gone through all that.
It would, because that's in there somewhere, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm sure,
Yeah. Who knew? All I had to do was go to rehab.
Yeah. We all have our little rehabs. It might not be drug or alcohol addiction, but we have to rehab of things, don't we?
Yes.
Yeah. The longer you live, the more rehabs you have to have.
Yeah.
But hopefully lighter ones than those.
Yeah, much lighter. Now it's
that you
just
had.
like 12, gentle 12-step programs and like therapy, and I just continue on. Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm happy I never got too much into those things, so I don't have that regret. But yeah.
Yeah, I know that's often a big part in a lot of people's stories, and I don't know how anyone who was like involved in music in that time period avoided all of that, because it's like either now they're sober or they died. Like there's
Yeah.
not really an
Yeah.
in-between. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just sometimes it just tips over and that's it.
Mhm.
They die, or it tips over in another way, and you go to rehab and decide to take your life in your own hands. Yeah.
It was really, really great to talk to you. I was
Very nice to talk to you
very
too.
nervous, and you are so friendly and like talkative and just really nice, and
And not shy after all.
you're not shy. Yeah, not shy anyway.
Thank you for listening. The Women of Rock Oral History Project podcast is a DIY publicly funded archive, and we accept donations year-round. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Women of Rock OHP and on Facebook, and check out all of the interviews on Vimeo, YouTube, or womenofrock.org. Thanks for listening.